Hi, I'm a frickin' nutcase. And why did I buy a Honda ST1300? I'm going to use one of the videos that the audio didn't come out all that well on as a backdrop, so we have something nice to watch as I go through this video. So the decision to buy the ST1300 came after a whole lot of research, both talking to friends as well as a lot of online research. And that homework is really paying off as I ride the bike for the first couple of times, and I'm really enjoying it. I think I did my homework, and as in most things in life, you get out what you put in. But it wasn't an easy path. Once I decided after my long ride last year that my V-Strom was probably not the best bike for taking long 1 and 2 week trips, I decided it was time to find one that it was. I was fortunate that the dealer I bought the V-Strom from, used, was actually a Honda dealer, and I had a really good purchase history with these guys. It was a good process. No drama, no head games. It was good to deal with these guys. Not all the dealers in the area I'm in, which is just outside of Toronto, Canada, I can say that about. There's a lot of dealers out there that give you sort of a funny feeling. But these guys, the Honda dealer, were really, really good to deal with. And because they were good to deal with, they had set me up on their demo day to ride a couple of their bikes. And the two that I really did think would be the right bike for me was the Goldwing and the ST1300. The first one I got to ride was the Goldwing, and man, I loved that bike. It had all the gadgets, it had all the gizmos, it was comfy, but boy was it expensive, and boy was it heavy. I didn't quite think I was ready for that sort of investment in financial outlay or in weight of bike. The next one I drove that day was the ST1300, and it checked all my boxes other than being pretty Spartan. Its only creature comfort was the adjustable windshield. So I said, well, I really like this bike, and started doing some research about it. Found that, like most of the bikes out there, there was a really good web community around this bike, stowners.com. And I did my research there, joined, asked a few questions, and found a really good bunch of riders. There were also two sort of web-based ride chronicles put together by guys that are members of stowners.com, Bama Rider and Uncle Phil. They both have some great trip logs and are really passionate about the STs. So I knew I had a good community, and I always had good luck with Honda vehicles. So I knew Honda reliability would be there for me. Reliability is very important, especially when you're a couple hundred miles from anything that vaguely resembles civilization, let alone a dealer. So with that in mind, I decided to see, well, what else is out there? Once you've gone into the purchase decision and you think you can afford a bike that is in the class of the ST1300, it opens up a whole lot of opportunities. There are dozens of bikes out there that are good, capable highway touring bikes with a bit of sport to them. Principally the ones I was looking at were the BMW R1200 RT, the Yamaha FJR, and the Kawasaki Concourse. That, along with the ST1300, are probably the big four of touring bikes. Years ago, a good buddy of mine did a long cross-country ride on a Concourse, the 1000. They stopped making those a few years ago, and they've been replaced by the 1400. So that was basically the first place I looked. There was a great website, Concourse Owners Group, that also supports that bike, so instantly I was able to find all sorts of reviews and comments. Went and sat on one, and I knew going in that it was going to be a tall bike, but I don't have the longest of inseams, and that was a bit of a concern. I found it just a bit tall. The V-Strom, as you probably know, is a little on the tall side as well, but mine had been lowered by the previous owner, and I learned the hard way not to mess with the suspension. So I won't be doing that again. So that, as well as the shorter range and the size of the fuel tank on the Concourse 14, sort of ruled that one out. Next stop was the Yamaha FJR, a well-liked and very reliable bike with a good following out there. It was going through a facelift for 2013, and rumors had it that the facelift would add the creature comforts, heated bits, traction control, and cruise control. Well, I work in the automotive industry, and one of the things you learn the hard way as an engineer in that part of the world is that the first year anything comes out, no matter how good your testing is, the first group of buyers really are your testers. So I was a little leery about the brand new bits, especially the electronic bits of the FJR. Having sat on one, I also realized that it really did lean more towards the sport side. I'm not 21 years old anymore, and I think I wanted a little bit more comfort, which is what I sort of found with the ST. What about the BMWs? Well, there are actually two on my radar, the K1600 GT or GTL. I sort of discounted that one due to the price, but the R1200 RT seemed to check all my boxes. There was even a good dealer close by that was good to deal with, gave me a good feeling. And I started doing my research online, and one of the things that popped up is final drive failures. Now, one of the things you got to realize about an online community is that for every person bitching, there are probably 100 people that are completely satisfied. It's just we tend to listen far louder to the gripes. The other thing with that final drive failure is if you look on the website for the Iron Butt Rally, you'll find that there's an awful lot of BMW entrants, and there are quite a few BMW non-finishers, and the final drive issue comes up there quite often. So I really do value reliability, so for that reason I ruled out the R1200 RT. It's interesting to see that the new water-cooled Boxer seems to have changed up the final drive a little bit, so the new GS and hopefully the new RT should hopefully be final drive issue free. Time will tell. So that sort of led me down to the ST1300. I did look at a couple of others. The Triumph Trophy was rumored and is now out, but it being a first year bike, despite the fact that from what I read they had tried to benchmark the Yamaha, the Honda and the BMW, and I knew Triumph would do a good job, I just wasn't ready for a first year bike. There are a few Italian bikes out there as well, basically the Moto Guzzi. There was a Moto Guzzi dealer close by, about an hour or so away, and I did actually have a chance to look at and sit on one of the Moto Guzzis, and the Norge, I think it is. It seemed like a great bike, but there's not very many Guzzi dealers in Canada, and one of the problems with some of the more independent dealers, and this is really kind of a rough thing, is we've lost quite a few of them of late. The economy hasn't been good and the bike market's down, and with the sparsity of Guzzi dealers, and really only one in the Toronto-ish area, I really didn't want to take a chance of this poor dealer going down and leaving me without some support. We've lost a few Honda dealers. There's enough of them around, and they're backed by a very major conglomerate that has a huge presence globally in the motorcycle world. I kind of felt there'll always be a Honda dealer around for me to go to. So that really led me into negotiating for a Honda. So, obviously, I went back to the Honda dealer I purchased my used V-Strom from. That was a good experience, and I had no doubt I'd have another one. They did have a brand new, at that time, 2012 ST, but because it wasn't overly late in the year, they weren't overly too willing to budge on price. Did a little shopping around, went to a couple other dealers, and found more or less the same thing. Well, one of the things that's interesting about Canada is we get a winter. And starting beginning of November, the snow flies. And when the snow flies, that's the time to go motorcycle buying. So sure enough, once the weather turned cold, Honda had some factory rebates and I was back to the dealer. So I ended up purchasing probably the same bike I had made an offer on about a month or so earlier, ready to roll. Stored it for the winter and picked it up a couple of days ago. So that's sort of my ST1300 purchasing experience. Sort of gives you a little bit of an idea of the decisions that went in. It's so far been a great bike. I spent the off season doing some research, looking at accessories and farkles that will be needed to help keep this bike comfortable and ready to ride. Stuff like a top case, a throttle lock, all those sort of things that I had on the V-Strom that really helped. So the throttle lock will hopefully alleviate the need for a cruise control. The top case will make packing easier. So at any rate, I'll probably be doing some reviews on some of those components and how those things are working out down the road. Anyways, thanks for listening. I'm a frickin' nutcase.